These are designed to really accelerate the upliftment of planetary systems, the solar systems, and life on them as well. These waves have started. As of the 4th of December, they are now current and running, and it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. You will see things that your mind is not privy to. We're literally seeing millennia upon millennia of old, stagnant energy that has been stuck within the Earth's body itself, within us as human beings. It's all being cleared out now. Those systems are going to fall down. It's just an inevitability.
Hello, beautiful souls. Guy here, my awesome guest, and welcome back to the podcast, David Clements, who is a former theoretical physicist. There we go, I get the words out. And now bridges consciousness and science in the spiritual realm. And this podcast, if you're a fan of David, it goes as deep as it can get. We discuss things that are happening on the planet right now, some radical ideas. But hey, on this podcast, it's great to explore all people's perspectives. And David's an extremely intelligent man. And I certainly listen intently when he shares and to get his point of view. Anyway, be sure to let me know what you think is actually happening on the planet right now. I don't know. I feel like something's going on for sure. So anyway, yeah, let me know where you are in the world as well. Connect with us on YouTube. It's always great connecting with you all. And just a quick heads up as well, just to let you know that we are literally opening registration for our Bali Live and Flow retreat, 5 days with us in end of June 2026. Bali is an amazing place to come. We're in an incredible venue, incredible shala, beautiful meals, all inclusive, 5 days with us. If you want to come and join us, our Australia retreat sold out, our New Zealand retreat sold out. I promise you Bali is going to sell out as well. Come and meet us, come and join us, come and hang out with us for 5 days. Come and hang out with beautiful souls that are into all this work, and this is where the spiritual rubber meets the road. Anyway, there'll be links below if you want to find out more. Much love from me. Enjoy this podcast as I re-welcome to the show, David. Yeah, it's awesome. David, welcome back to the podcast, my man. So good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. I've been looking forward to this, and hello to your audience as well.
You know, and you do something that always happens on the podcast or before the podcast starts, is that we get into a conversation and then you start telling me, you know, what's current for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is got to be recorded. Let's do this. So here we are. So let's go there. Let's just dive straight in, because the one thing you said to me off air was, you know, we're at a critical time at this point right now on the calendar, and I'd love you to share what you were saying and why you feel that is, and to help our listeners start to connect the dots in their own lives as well. I think it'd be really good to dive into.
Yeah, well, maybe I should begin where, in the pre-discussion, I was telling you how much of this information began. So in the beginning, I know there's a lot of interest in 3i Atlas, or I say a lot of interest, there's a massive amount of interest in it. Yeah. And when I initially checked in, my teams that I connect with, which are Arcturian nature and other, evolved beings, and it's funny because they don't like to use the word evolved because they consider themselves the same. We're source intelligence. They very much encourage people to see each other on a similar level. But I just use that word just to kind of describe them to your audience, because, to me, they are just beautiful emanations of source intelligence. They have a very advanced living energy technology. So it's just a word that just kind of sort of describes, a little bit of quality about them. But anyway, so I asked them, do you have any perspective or information you can offer on that object? And this is a few months back. I can't remember the exact date, but they were saying, would you allow yourself to see the unfolding of what happens rather than having too much sort of front-loaded information about what is and what is not? I said, okay, that's a cool answer. I could roll with that. And so I never did anything more with it, and just, carried on with what I was doing. And then sometime later, I was having a discussion with another interviewer, and they asked me, so I've had a lot of guests on, and I've done a lot of asking about, what people's perspectives on this object is, and they're very different. So what's your take on it? And I said, well, I did ask before, and that's the answer I got. So let's check again, see if they have any more information they want to offer. Now, what happened was my perspective got taken from what I thought was going to be more information about that object. And they started off by saying, well, there are several objects like this in the solar system. That is not the only one. And then they took me to, or showed me, because they were really excited to show this next step to me. And they showed me a number of enormous vessels. And when I saw them, I thought, they seem pretty big to me. Can you give me an idea or a gauge of size of how big these vessels are? And they said they're roughly 1/180th the size of the moon. So these are massive vessels. And the groups that operate, to coin a phrase, I don't know if that's the right way of calling it, that operate these vessels, the Arcturians and other beings of that kind of level and caliber and quality, if you like. And what they were showing me was they were placed around the solar system, and there are a number of different things they were doing. Now, first of all, they were showing me these non-material beams that were literally focal pointing in on the sun. And they were coming in from all these directions. I didn't get a gauge of how many they are. They didn't tell me that. But my sense was there were a lot of these vessels around. And they were modulating and getting and preparing the sun energetically to emit these non-material, and I asked them, would there be CMEs or coronal mass ejections, literal plasmas, being blown off the surface of the sun, which we get all the time.
CME?
But go ahead.
CME?
Oh, CME is coronal mass ejection.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's a term. So when the sun, generally when you get sunspots, you usually have the activity of CMEs, which are huge rifts of plasma that get blown off the surface of the sun, and some of them head towards us. And the aurora borealis that you can see, the northern lights, when that highly charged plasma hits parts of the atmosphere, it lights it up with those beautiful colors. So they are the result of CMEs essentially. So they said that would be part of it, but the main aspect of this were the non-material, all I could describe as multidimensional energetics that were being emanated from the star. Things were being really reshaped. And they said these waves were going to begin on the 4th of December. So they've already begun. And it was quite amazing because I was kind of sort of warmly anticipating what might be happening on the 4th of December. And I did a live stream on the 7th, and I asked my audience, so did anybody feel anything? Because when I woke up on the 4th, the energy was really high. It was really elevated. It was quite palpable. And I thought, wow, and I checked in with my teams, and they said, these are the waves. This is the initial front of the waves coming through, and this is what you can feel. So I asked my audience, just out of interest, did anybody else feel that too? And everyone's going, yeah, we all felt there's like this massive, huge uprush of energy. And I thought that's really cool because they were all over the world on the live stream. And so anyway, coming back to the main thread I was on so these waves have started, and these are very powerful evolutionary waves. These are designed to really accelerate the upliftment of planetary systems, the solar systems, and life on them as well. Now, there's more to this. So there's two other parts to this as
Please
well.
Keep going.
So this is quite a big subject.
Fascinated, yeah.
Yes. Sure, no worries. So I'd also been sort of having discussions that a very deep group of inner Earth beings that had connected with me. They're very tall. They're much taller than us, physically speaking. I don't have a size, but my guesstimate is around 2.5 times the size of a normal human being. That could be wrong, but that was just my perception of when I had connection with them. But they were quite big. But anyway, so I met a male and a female representative, and they showed me many different things, but in particular, what I can only describe as a living energetic star-like system at the center of the Earth, which, from my understanding of what they explained to me, was the core consciousness of what we call the Earth being, Gaia, or the Earth consciousness itself. and they have such great reverence for this, feminine emanation that comes from the core of the earth. And I got the impression that they are there to act as kind of guardians, if you like, to hold energetics, to work with that core intelligence within the earth, and doing amazing things. There's so much more to learn from these beings, but they said that they are preparing people on the surface very gently to begin the process so that eventually to have actual face-to-face connection with people, because they are looking to, because they consider us what you might call surface dwellers or surface walkers to be their brothers and sisters in a way. They don't consider us to be oh, they're just them up there. They are really looking to help us uplift our consciousness and expand and reconnect back to our source intelligence. It's a very big thing. Anyway, so there's that aspect. And what they were saying is, and this was maybe somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 months ago when I first had this connection, and they were showing me what was happening. These pulses were coming off this center star, and they were pulsing towards the surface. And like the emanations from the sun, these would come up from the core of the earth, and they would meet, and there would be this synergization between them. And we, as the surface population, would feel and experience directly the result of those energetics as they are now, and they are on now. So as of the 4th of December, they are now current and running, and it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's all modulated in a way. And the way they described it is these pulses would sort of step up, they would sort of settle, and then they'd wait for people to integrate balance and get stable with it. And then they'd step up again, and then they'd settle. And so there'd be this sort of sequential stepping up of this energetic, so to speak. And so that has started. But furthermore, the third part of this is that these vessels, when I was connecting with my teams, was saying that there is a ginormous membrane-like bubble, energetic bubble that had been formed around the solar system. And they were changing the conditions, because it's not just our planet that's going through this. They were describing that all planets within our solar system were going to experience this upgrading energetically within the planetary bodies themselves. And they said there is almost like what you might consider an ancient connection system between the planetary bodies that's going to result because of this, which is now coming back, into active fruition, if you want to call it that. But inside this bubble, inside this solar system bubble, they're gently raising and changing the energetics of the spatial system within the bubble, so that essentially, instead of being a stellar nursery in the solar system where all and sundry can come in and do all sorts of weird things, it's going to be such a heightened energy that as they described it to me, it would be ultra difficult, if not impossible, for a being to come in with very, very negative intentions or destructive intentions to be present in the solar system, because the energetic environment was being changed to be something which is far beyond the scope of that, and therefore not compatible. So the beauty of this is, and you mentioned in the pre-discussion that you always love to give people, something very positive. To me, this is a massive, massive positive assist that we're getting right now. And it's already started, and it's happening right now. And so, yeah, it's, I don't know if you have any questions on that. So I'm sure you have, but
first of all, it's pretty wild. First of all, the listeners, I have no doubt anyone listening to this is well down the rabbit hole and probably understands frequency, energetics, and how they affect us and so forth. But there'll be a body of people probably curious to say, well, how is this happening? Why are they doing it? Like, what are the consequences of this long term? And so that's what's coming in. And the other thing is, if it's happening right now, is this over a lifetime span? Is this something that's permanent? Is this something that's going to accelerate in the next year or two? Like, have you been given insight to that?
Yeah. So there are a few questions I'd like to answer in there. And first of all, coming to your question about why are they doing this? Now, the teams that I work with, they have an incredibly advanced and evolved connection with their source core intelligence, which is in the heart field system. So the heart intelligence itself is, everybody's privy and knows about mental IQ and all that kind of stuff. And most people, when they're born, start to engage with or actively use their intellect, if you like. And, from my background, that's what I did. I was a theoretical physicist, and it was all intellectual for quite some time until I had my sort of like kick up the rear end and awakening moment. And, but what they were always, and, the Arcturians have, let me just call, I don't like the word technologies, but let's just call it that because that's what people are familiar with. They have such advanced living energy technologies that are revered throughout this galaxy. That's how advanced they are. And I think I may have said this before in a previous interview with you, but one of the things they said to me when I was building a coil system, they were helping me to understand how to build. And I was getting a bit frustrated because I felt like the energy wasn't, kept getting stuck. And they said, look, you're going to understand that there is a big difference, a world of difference between living from your heart intelligence and trying to operate from your mind intelligence. And this is coming from the Arcturians. These, like I said, their level of tech and evolution is really off the charts. And that is what they were saying. And that really stopped me. And I thought, oh, I see it now. So, and they were saying, look, when you learn to anchor into it and connect into your heart intelligence, and that's not just a wishy-washy word, you really do have a heart intelligence. And the fields within them are profound. It's just that we've never used them before or connected with them in the way that we're supposed to. And so we just think that everything's just an intellectual exercise to dissect, get information, knowledge, and etc. What they were saying is, no, it's actually, if you come from a heart intelligence perspective and you perceive things, you will see things that your mind is not privy to by a long shot. You will see depth of things. You will see expanse in things. You will see ideas and ways forward that your intellect simply is not designed to see or work with in an intellectual way. And so having sort of adopted that idea for many years in my own research, I've gained access to a whole bunch of things that I simply would never have done had I have just followed my previous, intellectual sort of walking point, if you like. So get back to the question. So I just wanted to give a bit of contrast to what I'm going to say next. And that is that when you, having learned to have gone from intellectual perception and dependence to very heart-centered intelligence, you start to understand and realize the qualities that start emanating from you when you do that. And it is the qualities of compassion. It is the qualities of unification. It's the qualities of kindness. It's the qualities of insight that are just so profound and deep that I never, like I said before, I never would have been able to do that with just my intellect. And so the more I worked with this, you get this sense that, and when I connect with these beings that are incredibly, I would say, immaculately connected to their heart intelligence, the source intelligence that emanates from them wishes to elevate every living thing, but in a way that honors their free will. So they come from that level of intelligence. They have a love and a wish to assist others because it is just simply their heart intelligence joy to do so. Now, there are other beings out there that haven't attained that heart intelligence yet or have deliberately shut it off and don't wish to operate that way. They're the ones that, tend to have sort of more agendaed approach to things. So I'm only interested in those beings that are evolved enough that have the heart intelligence connection. Those are the ones that I work with. And like I said, the more you work with that heart intelligence, the more you just simply innately feel just a call or a state of being within you that wishes to outreach, help, assist, and uplift. It's just how that intelligence operates, And so that's why they're doing this. They see the amazing things that are happening here. And, they've said many times, there are beings within this galaxy and beyond that we don't even know the names of who are here assisting because they see the powerful potentials of upliftment that are happening here. And it's their excitement and joy to join in and, be a part of that, So that those are the groups that I connect with, and that's my experience of how they operate. Now, the other part of your question to do with timing, there's no specific timing because this is being modulated, and what they do is they look at humanity's reaction to a series of ways, and if they see that a little bit more time for stabilization is needed, they'll allow that within a certain window. If they can accelerate further, if everyone's doing great, like riding the wave effortlessly, they'll ramp it up a little bit further. So it's a little bit of a dynamic that goes on. So it's not something that's set in stone. It's more fluid in that way. So I can't give you any sort of definitive timeline, so to speak, on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, I mean, I've done a lot of podcasts over the years, and there's a clear conversation that's happening right now that there's shifts that are ultimately going on in this window of
Yeah.
now. And when you come on and start speaking to these things, it's like, wow, isn't that interesting? It evokes a curiosity around it all. And, when you speak of the heart intelligence, that really resonates with me because I'm my own living proof of activating my own heart potential and starting to nurture that in every day. My life looks very differently. I even had Roland McCready from Heart Math Institute on literally last week talking to the science of the heart around those things and the interaction with the heart and the Earth's magnetic fields and the solar waves of the sun. All these things
Yeah.
have scientifically proven as well, aren't they? It's fascinating. The question that's coming into me, I think would be good to open up as well, is what can people expect as these frequencies start to rise then? Because from what I've seen on my own journey is, I'm going to swear here, but shit comes up constantly.
Right.
Right. And it's probably trauma from this life, trauma from past lives, ancestral things that have come down. I mean, I hold space, I hold retreats, and I've been over the years slowly been letting all that breathe, that energy clear and move, and my connection to my heart and connection to this universal intelligence that's ever present is more and more prominent, which is fantastic. But it
Yes.
takes courage to lean into that and say that's what I want. What's going to happen to people that
Yeah.
resist this?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'd love to answer that because, and I was thinking about this. Perhaps it's no coincidence that you're impulsed to ask that because I was thinking last couple of days, particularly about the scientific mindset. Having been, having come from, a very prominent academic background, working with, very very famous people in institutions. I was going to be an academic physicist, and this stuff would have been woo woo to me back then. I was, very focused on what I was doing. And it's a funny thing because let's start here. So as part of this process in humanity and this sort of densification and playing through the game of what would it be like to have an experience where your heart connection is so diminished that you feel that you're an isolated being that's just walking around trying their best to survive, avoid the walls, avoid the thorns, try to have some semblance of a, fun life. So that's what humanity has been replaying again and again, lifetime after lifetime. And it's had a lot of very dips, very deep tragedies, a lot of traumas that have taken place in our history. And it reached such a point of density where the idea of connection or feeling connection was just, what the heck is that? Everybody, it's almost like the larger portion of the population was absolutely adamant that it was just everything's material. It's just as we see it. If you can knock it, it exists. If it doesn't, and so on. Now, having gone through the scientific route and seeing how the scientific mindset and materialistic mindset works, it's a very odd thing because it does interconnect back into, sort of control and the fear not to know, intellectually as well. But more so than that, when you talked about having your experience of being heart-centered yourself, my experience of going from very head-centric to very heart-centered was a difficult one because my head was complaining all the time about, oh my God, really? What are people going to say? And all that kind of stuff. So it was very unsettled about the idea of a lot of these concepts. Now, multidimensionality, a lot of these sort of non-material concepts, these are things you have to experience first before you can have an idea of them. And that's where my frustration was coming in, particularly with that coil system I told you about before, because I was trying to intellectualize it and it wasn't working. And the Arcturian said, no, you have to first have a perception of this from your heart intelligence. Then you will understand it. Because in one way, I've heard say before from many different beings is the mind's version of understanding is control. The heart's version of understanding is compassionate experience. So it's a very, very different contrast. Now, I would say that once the mind aligns with the heart center, it loses that paradigm of control or grip, or yes, I know this, I hold on to this, this is solid information, yada, yada, yada. Instead, it becomes a more fluid, more sort of dynamic, expanded mindset, which works in synergy with the heart intelligence. So it's not that you lose intellectual intelligence. No, not at all. It gets better and more expanded, and it starts working properly the way it's supposed to. Instead of being disconnected and just flapping around doing its own thing, it now works from a core intelligence of, profound intelligence that impulses it in ways that are now positive. Because what we've had at the moment is a human mindset that just keeps looping through past experience again and again. And people think of when they have ideas, oh, it's a new idea. Well, if it's generated from the mind, is it? Because the mind coalesces past experience, amalgamates it together, and gives a new output. So what it's doing is permuting old experience, mulching it together, and giving you a new direction. But the core of true creativity and true original conception, if you like, or inception of thought is from the heart intelligence. When that impulses your mind, then you get a truly new idea and something that's never been done before. And so humanity has been going through this historical looping for a very long time because in my perspective, because of this massive disconnection from the heart intelligence, which has caused it just to keep looping. It's like a stack of cards. You've got a whole stack of cards. You can spin them around, shuffle the pack as many times as you like, but there's a finite number of shufflings you can before you've exhausted all possibilities. And it's very similar with experience. It's based on this looping of historical experience. And so you see repeating patterns happening in people's lives all the time. It's not new. It's just a rehash of the same thing presenting itself in perhaps a slightly different way. But what we're doing as part of this evolutionary ascension process, we're getting the chance to get back into heart consciousness, heart-centered intelligence, with a synergy between the mind and heart consciousness, so that now we can truly move the earth into brand new ways and break the loops of the past and historical energies that have just kept us cycling around the ways that we have been. So I hope that's answered your question there. You may have had some other ones that I forgot to answer, but
it'll be interesting to see. I'm just interested to see how all this unfolds and how people start to respond to this, if consciously or unconsciously. At what point are they going to start being open to this and listen and actually explore the heart, especially when you're such a mind-based place as well. Yes. And you know what was coming into me when you were sharing that? I don't know if you've got any thoughts about this, but like in Taoist tradition, the heart is the earth, the earth energy of the heart chakra. And it's like, well, the earth is the heart chakra of our solar system. And so interestingly, it's shifting. The heart of Gaia is opening up. That was...
Yeah. The toroidal flow aspect is incredibly profound. It is very, very fundamental. And like you said, the earth has toroidal, both magnetic and other toroidal aspects about it, which are very influential to humanity's consciousness and our synergy with the earth. And it's interesting because that's one of the things that I forgot to answer before, so we can maybe mesh that in here about how do people make the jump? How do they start, moving into or start to loosen their grip? Now, it comes back, from my perspective, there's many different facets to this, but in a nutshell, there is an old reoccurring sort of fear to not be in control. And that is a mind-based system or a paradigm that people have that they feel keeps them safe. And that's one of the difficulties which people are experiencing, because there are many different levels in your unconscious and subconscious where these control safety programs are still running, and we're not even generally aware of them when they're going. We just know it when we have a reaction to something, or we start clapping up or having a bit of a tissy when somebody, snaps a key word or something, because there's a lot of that going on right now, with people getting very triggered about certain words and things. And to me, I would say that pay attention when you get triggered like that. That is pointing you towards something that is within you that has now come to the surface for your attention that you can now release. And the dichotomy or the inversion, illusion that people have is they think, oh, you're safer when you're all clammed up and getting ready for defending yourself. No, you're not. It's the opposite. When you do that, you lower your energetic, your fields contract, and now you suddenly start being susceptible, to things which, may not be in your best interest. So it's one of the things to keep relaxed, keep open, and you'll find out of practice, you can actually be in a room of people shouting directly at you, all sorts of expletives with your energy high, and it just simply does not affect you. It just literally just bounces straight off. It can't enter, because the energy synergy of you is so high. Those very dense, low energetic vibrational forms, they can get no entry. They can't get into you. But if you contract and you go into defense mode, suddenly you're now coming down and matching that vibration. Now they can start to have more of an effect on you. So that contraction and control and defense mode that people have, and I've had that throughout my early part of my lifetime, so I know exactly from experience what that's like. That doesn't actually help you. It goes the other way. Now, I think that relates to your question about how, are people going to open up to this? Well, it's one of the fundamental things my team say to me is it's be playful, be lighthearted. There is no better way for a human to be than to be in joy and being playfulness, because that's the true nature of source intelligence. It's literally the quality of source intelligence. It's not serious. It's not contracted. It is very open. It's flowing. It's dynamic. It's multidimensional. It's all those beautiful qualities that we're always looking for. And when you play with that and you start to emanate and synergize with that, now you start to really elevate yourself. Now you start to expand quite naturally and innately, So that's what I've found in my experience. And I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but I would say that this is one of the big stumbling blocks that I see for most people right now in terms of acceptance of and the understanding of what's coming, because it's coming regardless of whether people want to, jump on the bandwagon or not. But they have a choice always, So I would say that's the thing. Just be very aware of where you are contracted. And if you find yourself contracted, just breathe, relax, get yourself back into joy and laughter, however you find to do that. That's, unique to everyone, I think. And just the more you practice that, it will get easier and easier to do very naturally all the time. And then suddenly you'll find yourself not being affected by the silly things that, had triggered you off before, whatever that is. It's
we have a saying: you spot it, you got it, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
1000%. Your triggers are your greatest teachers. That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Since I've shifted more into my heart, like my journey's been a life journey, like yourself, and moving in more and more into this heart-centered way of living, relinquishing control, surrender, and trusting the process, trusting that there's something divine working with you as you move forward, especially when you move into this collaborative we approach as opposed to just me. My life has opened up in ways I didn't know was possible, and it's beautiful, and I'm so grateful for it. But now that I'm more and more in this space, I can't help but look at the world and think the world's gone batshit crazy, right? Like, and I mean this sincerely, but like you look at the wars that are going on, you look at the way politicians behave and the way the systems are set up, all these old structures, and the way media is just constantly bombarding fear. If it bleeds, it leads, and everything feels like it's I don't know if we hear by accident, just through human behavior, or there's intentionality behind it. But I just keep asking the question, why? What, you know what I
Right?
mean? I don't know if you've got any words of wisdom on this, but it's just boggles my mind these days.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I think it's a very, very good question, and I think it's very important to answer. And so, what I would say is this: that during humanity's sort of, call it devolution, densification, whatever you want to call it, down into density. Now, what we're experiencing, let's start with this and I'll go into more detail. What we're experiencing right now is the dissolution or the dissolving of all the unconscious unknown we have hidden inside us, and the subconscious as well, dissolving up and opening up so it can come back into consciousness. So everything is fully fully conscious and known again. So, people talk about, darkness or things like that. Well, really, that's just energy where light hasn't entered yet, and it's
Mm,
the unknown. Now, what happens is, for example, one of the beings said before that from the mind's eye, that which appears to have a lack of source intelligence in it appears dark. So source intelligence isn't handling, flowing, dynamically growing, supporting, and evolving that particular form or energetic. So it looks to you in your mind's eye as dark. That's what darkness is. But as soon as light comes into it or source intelligence imbues it, suddenly it starts glowing and luminescing. That is light. And so what's happening is, because of humanity has had such a level of what would it be like to have a lack of source intelligence within your experience, the dark ages, all those kind of things. This is all the result of a lack of connection with source intelligence that's coming back now. But as it comes back, all the energetics we have created while experiencing lack of source connection, the density, the negativity, the hatred, the anger, the volatility, the conflict you mentioned about wars, all of that is just dissolving as it comes out, as the source intelligence that grows within us is dissolving it away and bringing it back into harmonization. And so we're seeing it as it comes out. And those thought forms, which can behave a little bit like entities that have thrived on humanity's constantly pumping out negativity or hatred or anger of any form, that's now stopping. The faucet's or the tapper's being turned off, because instead of generating those polarity energetics, we're now moving back to a civilization that is heart-centered, where we do not generate that kind of energetic. And so it's all disappearing. And so energetic forms, thought forms, whatever you want to call them, that are dependent on that as to survive, are kicking up a fuss as they dissolve away. And dissolve away they will, because it's one thing I say to people, well, think about it. Lots of steps have been taken to try and get humanity to be in fear or to be in low energetics. Why? It's because when you're there, you generate that. You actually pump it out. Now, if you stop doing that, said, no, I'm not doing the fear game anymore. I'm just going to, I'm on a heart-centered path. I'm going to start producing and emanating source intelligence. Now you're not producing that level of energetic again. The environment around you starts to change, because now you're emanating source intelligence, and now suddenly conflicts start to dissipate. The negativity in different situations you might have experienced starts to dissipate, because source intelligence is now organizing things in an intelligent, compassionate, kind, loving way. It's very different from control. Control is a very shabby and poor alternative to source intelligence. Let's put it that way. And so that's what we're seeing. We're literally seeing millennia upon millennia of old stagnant energy that has been stuck within the earth grids, within the earth's body itself, within us as human beings. It's all being cleared out now. And so we will see that as it comes out. So it's very close to being fully cleared now. So the bulk of it has been done. But it does look like, all is just falling to pieces. And this is the other part. It will look like that because you have to remember So many of the societal systems that we have in place are built on the very energetic of the old systems, the old energies we used to produce. The level of which we are producing those old energies has gone so down through the floor, and source intelligence coming so up through the floor and raising up. Those old systems can't function properly. They are literally lashing out, flapping around, and scrapping for survival because everything that used to be of humanity supporting it by emanating the very energetics that it was based on, we're not doing that anymore. Some people still are to a certain degree, but massively overall, we are largely stopping that and changing to source intelligence living. And so those systems are going to fall down. It's just an inevitability.
Yeah, because you only have to look at those systems, and they clearly are not set up with everyone in mind.
No.
Like,
No.
you know what I mean? Like, somebody is benefiting from them systems way more than others. It's not like set up for the people and for us
Yes.
all to thrive in an environment. Please.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt there, but you've raised a point that I think is really good to maybe explain here. It's to do with parasitation versus living internally from your own source conscious well, if you like.
Ah,
So for a long, long time, certain groups of beings who had no access, who some of them had deliberately tried to shut down their own source connection, now they've lost access to the source well inside them. So where do they get their energy from? They have to get it from others now. So they become parasitic in nature. And so a lot of the societal structures that we have are based on, people behaving parasitically, taking from others, misbehaving in all sorts of ways. Now, one of the things that my teams described to me is when humanity comes back into source energetic connection in the heart intelligent field system, the well of infinite energy, of possibility, of all things creativity open up to you again. You no longer need to get from others. You no longer need to get from outside of you. You become a self-sovereign, self-sustaining, living energy being. That is a massively different paradigm from being what we have been, which is, sucker, parasite, and all versions of that in between as well. So that's what we're moving out to. I thought it just
no,
worth mentioning that when
absolutely,
you.
because it makes me think of even things like activism and throwing rocks at different things that you want to see gone and don't like. You're just constantly pushing up against and emanating an energy that continues to feed the cycle, as opposed to finding that peace
Yes.
within yourself first and becoming that heart-centered.
Yes.
And then,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. This to me is the very core key thing. And it's what the Arcturian said to me many times. The key is absolutely your connectivity and how much connectivity you have with your core source intelligence, which is each of us has a direct connection with the source field, the source intelligence field. And that's starting to come back online in humanity en masse now. And these waves, this assistance is all about that. It's about giving humanity the choice. Hey, if you choose to live as a source intelligence being, your entire world is going to change in ways you cannot even fathom. You don't have to take action. You don't have to bandy in groups and protest and do X, Y, Z. It will all happen quite naturally because when you emanate that energy starts transforming your environment in alignment with the emanation you are giving off. So if you are emanating stuckness, anger, conflict, all those other things, that's what you're going to get. That's what you literally reshape your environment to be. And so we are emanators, and that's a very profound thing for us to understand as human beings, that what we emanate is very important to keep an eye on, in a sense. It's very important to make sure that you are emanating the energy that you actually want to experience and not let yourself drop down into hate, anger, conflict, whatever it is, and that's a key thing,
totally.
it's all about self-responsibility. And the word responsible or responsible is, are you able to respond wisely to a situation and say, you know what? Don't like that energy very much. How am I emanating to create? Oh, I see it now. I see where that is. I can change that, lift that up. Now I'm emanating a different signal now, a different energy. Now I'm going to get a different response. Everything is going to change. And I think that is the beautiful simplicity of, for me, in my perspective, how it works is that change the emanation you're giving off if you don't like what's coming back as a request from your emanation that you're giving off. It's, it's really that simple.
I remember the old, it's making me think of the Wayne Dyer quote. And he would say, you got to flip the paradigm from we've been conditioned to have the things that we need to do to then do the things we want to do and then become the person we want to be. That's the old paradigm. And he's like, no, you have to be the person first. You emanate this, the being, and then you do, and then you have.
Yeah.
And it's all about
Yes.
that emanation you said, isn't it?
I believe so. And this is one of the frustrations that a lot of people have. People, I was on another podcast not too long ago, and there was a lady on there who said she was a retired manifester because she got so frustrated with trying to manifest and she couldn't get things to work. And I said, I feel that the reason is because, it's manifestation is actually quite a natural consequence of emanating. When you emanate, things reshape themselves around you. But can you match the emanation that you would be to have the experience of what it is that you want to experience? Can you match that? But if you can't, it's not going to materialize because you can't put out the request for it properly. The universe is listening to your broadcast, your energy. The quantum field morphs to the energy you produce. And so if you can't produce the energy that you are looking for that will enable a certain experience, it won't come about. So it really is down to us. We are the powerhouses. We simply have to understand how to change our energy state, our emanation, in order to be in the experience that we want to be. And so for a long time, certain groups have gone out of their way to try and install all sorts of looping programs, self-defeating programs into humanity to get you to create and emanate self-defeating. And, to step in your way, to have things go wrong. And, so you get frustrated, you get tied up in all sorts of things. And those are just programs. They're not your real emanation. And this is part of also what's coming out and why people have these ascension symptoms and things that they feel. It's all the yuck, all the old cycling program stuff that is not going to serve you or help you, breaking down and coming out. Now, here's the key that they said to me. This is when it's so important to be relaxed and enjoy and playfulness, because if you react to it and go into grip, you're going to hold it in place and you won't let it go. So these waves are naturally trying to move this off you, and it will, but you just have to ride through it and say, you know what? I feel kind of crap right now. That's okay. It's just stuff moving. Let it go, let it move. And within a matter of time, it'll be gone and I'll be a lot higher in state. My emanation is going to change. And now I can move a step further in the direction I want to go.
Yeah, no, I love it because that feels to me then very practical, grounded, and allowing us to get on and enjoy, embrace our life in the moments. Because I think the human condition is very easy to get caught up, even in these conversations, and go, "Wow, the aliens are coming, everything is going to change, the world's going to go," and we hook into it, and then it becomes an external thing, something outside of ourselves, and it's distracted us from
the
emanation and the shifts that actually the work, what we should be doing the work on is within ourselves to be clearing that trauma. Like it's so subtle, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, and it's like a lighthouse. And another way of making a grounded analogy is if a lighthouse has its lens covered in mud, how on earth can it emanate a pure signal that's going to be helpful to ships outside of it? In other words, how can you be of service to other people properly? And how can you generate the light environment that you're looking for when your lens is just covered with crap? So that's kind of an analogous way of seeing what we're doing. We're literally clearing off the crud of lifetime after lifetime trauma, emotional charge, faulty paradigm belief systems. I mean, there's so many different words that you can use to describe this stuff. We're clearing off that so we can become a very powerful, pure emanator of source intelligence. And you wait to see, I mean, these beings that have this emanation, they literally simply, when they're on a vessel, for example, they will simply just collectively say, we're going to this galaxy, and they're gone. That's the power of their emanation and the symbiosis with how the reality is made up, or the levels of reality are made up that they have. They don't use electronic tech to do it. It's living, conscious technology, and it's them that is doing it. It's not an external thing. And that's very important to understand. So self-mastery in my way of thinking is as simple as cleaning off your lens so you can emanate properly, because until you do, it's like going to a cinema. A pure light comes out of the projector, but if you've got film going in front of it, which has got all sorts of awful imagery on it, that's what you're going to see. The film has to change, and the film is clearing away from your lens faulty beliefs, old energies, old angers, stagnates, hate, guilt, shame, all of that stuff. None of that helps you. It's all mud on the lens, which filters your projective emanations and distorts it into what you experience in your life. So that's what has to change. And that's, to me, is very fundamental.
Yeah, wow. How does one, I think there's been a nice way to bring the tail end of the podcast in, but connect to their team or a team or their guides and things like, I've noticed, like I was speaking off air on my journey, the more I've been clearing, the more my field's clear. And then when I intentionally go to that space, I can feel different presences, and it's a vast different experience to my condition 5 senses experience, But how have you found it when you started connecting to, non-physical, or if they are physical but not showing themselves, I don't know. But what has been your approach to this? And I think people would be fascinated by it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my approach is always the higher self, or that core self that we are bringing forward as we clear things out of us. It's the core intelligence. It's the expression of us which goes through multidimensional bands of energetics back to source intelligence. It's all the higher self. I know people have different ways of describing it, but to me, it's the nested field of living intelligence that goes all the way back to source within us. Now, that to me is our greatest ally, our greatest friend, because it knows us inside and out. It knows exactly what our path is. It knows exactly what we need next in our step in order to grow, in order to clear, in order to expand. So I always say, from my perspective, that the most important being to connect to is your higher self. And you can do that very simply. The one thing that they always, when they do activations and meditations, they ask people to do what they call rhythmic breathing. So your breathing system, your lung system, is around your heart center, and it is very interrelated into your heart opening and how your heart energetics work, your heart field systems work. And they describe rhythmic breathing as being the most rhythmic breathing that brings you the most relaxation and joy. So it could be as shallow or as deep, as fast or as slow. It doesn't have to be this big gulping deep breath when you're stretching your body out. None of that. It's a rhythm that you play with, and you start feeling the sweet spot that is your rhythm at that particular time, and it can change. So when you find that sweet spot of breathing, okay, that's the rhythmic. That is the most synergistic breathing right now that can help you connect with the heart center. Now, once you've got that breathing rhythm going, then you ask your higher self to infuse itself into you, into your body, and what the source intelligence and the guides that do these meditations into your heart, your cells, your mind, let it flood you and just feel the synergization. And then you can just feel that. And you can even ask your higher self to help you bridge into and connect better with your higher self. Now, the more you connect with your higher self, the greater your perceptibility. You'll start having expanded perception of things. You'll start to feel things more deeply. It's quite natural because your higher self has those abilities, and now you're getting access to them because you are synergizing with your higher self. And one of the things when I connect to the Arcturians and other beings is what they always invite me to feel their energy, so I know energetically who I'm dealing with. And as you practice working with your higher self, that energy sensitivity is going to evolve as well. So for example, when somebody's talking to you and they're talking BS, but they're saying in such a way that sounds so like, oh, wow, what an amazing guy, but really they're being deceptive. You will feel that energetically, and you'll because you can't hide your energy. You can't hide your emanation. You can say as many beautiful words as you like. You can't bullshit somebody with energy. In a fun way of saying it, it just is impossible. So when you feel someone's energy and you get a feel of it, you understand who you are dealing with, what their intentions are, and what it is that they're wishing to do. It's a very important thing to do. So I would say when you work with your higher self in that way, your higher self is going to help you get a better feel for energetically what it is you're doing, who you're working with, what choice might lead you down a difficult path, what choice will be, yeah, that'll be a great one. That will really bring you a lot of joy, a lot of expansion. So your higher self knows all of the ins and outs there. So I'd say that's sort of connective point number one. And when you get used to working with your higher self, connecting with high dimensional beings is very straightforward because your higher self is already at those levels. So your higher self will effortlessly be able to connect with these different beings, bring them to you and say, oh, hey, this is such and such a race or such and such a being. They would like, would you be willing to connect with them? Yes or no? Because your high self doesn't overrule your free will either. So you have to be very active and a participant in this whole process. So yeah, that's how it's worked for me. And,
Amazing.
you know, it's been just a beautiful process all the way through in doing
And I
that.
guess it's through the subtleties, it's learning to distinguish what's just a thought in the mind, but what's actually emanating from something beyond the conscious mind, and then interpreting that data, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah, well, the way it comes to me is that I call it a quantum snapshot. So you get this energy impression. And then because our minds are linear. They like to linearize things out into sequence. But in the quantum world, it doesn't work like that because time doesn't operate the way that we think it does. It's every time and no time. It's all space and no space at the same time. It's very confusing to a linear sequence, mode of operation. So when you get it, it's like you then have to just feel the energies and let them open up and present themselves to you in what appears to be a sort of sequence of ideas or concepts and so forth. So it's a little bit of a trick. It's a beautiful art form for a human being to learn that multidimensional interpretation, encoding, or deciphering, or understanding of energies as they come to you, so to speak. But as always, my team say, be playful with it. It's okay to make a mistake, because you're learning, you're remembering how to do this. It's not a big deal, but it should be fun, and then it's always a key thing. If you find yourself doing any of this outside of fun, you're heading in the wrong direction, in my view. That's
Yeah, no, fantastic. Thank you. That's really helpful. And last question for you. But what's coming to me is from your academic background. Do you keep in touch with any of them? Do they because you what I love about you, you speak so openly and honestly and from the heart, David. Like it really just shines, and you're speaking about deep esoteric conversations, but with your knowledge, it just all makes sense. If that, but then people in the old paradigm in the old world were probably not even aware of this. I was just curious because you would have had to have stepped off that at one point, right? And gone, I'm going to start talking about this
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, that's a lovely question as well. There's a couple of things I'd like to say to that. And first of all, a friend of mine from Oxford, when he was doing a PhD the same time as me, reached out to me because I believe his wife was listening to one of the people I'd interviewed with and say, "Oh, hey, come." And I thought, I know that guy. I lived with that guy for a year. And so he reached out, and it's interesting because, yeah, it was quite a blast from the past, chatting with him, and he was saying the same thing. He said, "You're really brave for coming out and doing this." And I said, "Well, I guess in a way, the way I felt that was, well, it's just simply truth to me. And, I can't feel but do anything but just say the truth that comes. Sometimes my mind might take a role and start to, hold things back but then I have to say, no, just, it's fine. Just let it roll. It's okay. But the one thing that, and this is going to be probably a big answer to your question here, is that I was thinking about that connection between my scientific past and science, community in general, and the spiritual community in general. And my higher self came in and said, well, source intelligence is the master physicist. It's the master chemist. It's the master artist. It's the master poet. It's the master of everything. So where is the boundary? And so, but what it got me thinking of is that, we've always been so used to thinking of scientific camp, spiritual camp, but the truth is the creator is behind all of them, you know, and if you go too much into, intellectual stuff, you miss all the heart intelligence. And if you go too much into being into the spiritual side of things, you might miss out on being the applicator of things as well. So there's a beautiful synergy between having, like I said, the impulse of profound heart intelligence that comes through that you can then apply as a human being in the real world. So in truth, when you connect with the heart intelligence, you are becoming the master physicist, the master chemist, the master artist, the master everything. So there is no boundary there anymore. To me, I thought that was like a real eureka moment. I thought that is beautiful. That's so
I'm
cool
so
because
yeah.
that's exactly how
I'm
it is.
so glad I just raised it at the end. I just felt just an impulse to ask you, and now I know why. That was perfect, mate. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
I think that's a great way to end the podcast. Where can people get hold of you, David, if they want to find out more about your work and everything that you're doing?
Sure, we have a few websites, so I'm pretty sure you'll put the links
Yeah.
to them. But IC-Infinity is where we produce multidimensional devices, which the teams help us create for doing harmonization of environmental spaces. All the things to do with regular life activities. The other one we have is to do with the meditations and activations. So Source Intelligence are asked to bring these activations through to help people connect and bridge into the Sacred Heart, the infinity point, which is a direct gateway to Source Intelligence itself. So all of the meditations up to 15 and many after that are free to watch on our Patreon channel. We do charge for the personal ones now because it's a paid for platform now. So that just helps us keep the platform going. It also supports my research work as well, because behind the scenes, I do a lot of research work, and developing things, should we say, which will be coming soon. So there's the Patreon channel, which is Infinite Source Creations. We also have a website, infinitesourcecreations.com, which has a lot of other information, including links to those meditations as well. So you can find it all on there, and yeah, just have fun.
No, amazing, David. Look, thank you so much for coming back on. It's always wonderful to connect with you, and I always get a lot out of it when we share time together. So it's deeply appreciated, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you for asking me back on, and it's been great fun doing this. And I wish you and all of your audience just a beautiful experience, the most loving and fun-filled experience going forward. And hope you enjoyed this
Yeah.
information.
Thanks, Legend. Cheers.